Those wacky Roy siblings are at it again. Let's get started. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Thumb Together TV. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and today we're going to be talking about Succession Season 3, Episode 2, Mass in Time of War together. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Otherwise, I may be sent a box of poison donuts. And even though they're poison, they'll still look delicious, and I'll probably eat one. I'm not a very smart person. Mass in Time of War is the name of this second episode of Season 3, and I find the name really charming and really kind of a tongue-in-cheek message from the writers because of what ends up happening here. You see, back in World War I, there was this historic moment where the two opposing armies put aside their differences for one day out of the year. Christmas Day, in fact. Or it might have been Christmas Eve. I don't know. I wasn't there. Either way, there was a ceasefire, and the two armies not only stopped shooting at one another, but they intermingled for a night. They played soccer, they shared stories, they told jokes, and from what I hear, they even had a little bit of a Christmas midnight mass kind of thing going on. It was literally mass in the time of war, which is why I think that this title is so tongue-in-cheek, because the World War had a moment that was more civil and more humane than the War of the Roys. Because these Roys are all a pit of venomous snakes. Everybody is out only for themselves. The Roys are just horrid people. And frankly, I've been of the mind throughout this series that if there's anybody who I would want to see come out on top, it would maybe be either Jerry or Greg. And that's only because out of all the people we've seen, Jerry and Greg seem like they're the least douchey. Maybe even Frank, too. Frank's all right. But if I didn't feel that way before, this is the episode that would cement for me just how much I feel it now in terms of the Roy family in general. Because nobody in this family deserves any of that power. These people should not have power. It is like putting an armed rifle in a child's hands. It shouldn't happen. I really liked the nature of this episode because it all took place at Kendall's ex-wife's apartment, and the four siblings were together, which doesn't happen often on the show. Usually they're off doing their own thing, but this time all four of them banded together with, I don't think there was an invite. I think they all just kind of came of their own accord, but Kendall had planned for that. And they sat and they tried to discuss why siding with Kendall should happen over siding with Logan. And when we get to the point where the siblings retreat into Kendall's daughter's room to talk in private, I don't know about the rest of you, but my first reaction was, oh yeah, he has children. I kind of forgot they existed, and I'm pretty sure he did too. And I think that that bedroom scene visually was a perfect representation of that whole idea of, you know, you look at a rich kid, a really rich kid, and you think, geez, what must their life be like? And I can't help but think about that when we get this scene in Kendall's daughter's room. I think her name is Sophie, because this bedroom is immense. It's got layers to it. It's bigger than any bedroom I, a grown man, have ever had. And the apartment that it is part of is also immense. It has a spiral staircase. I have never seen that in real life. I didn't know apartments came that way. So our initial knee-jerk reaction would be, oh, look at this. Rich kid, swimming in luxury, probably never had a problem in her life. But then I remember, nobody cares about that kid. Her own father certainly doesn't. Her mother does, but I mean, her mother wasn't the rich one, which tells us a lot. The whole Roy family doesn't. You think Siobhan is going out and buying gifts for that girl on her birthday? I don't even think she knows what the girl's birthday is. And Logan would probably look at that girl and be like, who are you again? So in a way, we could look at this bedroom and think, I envy the life that that child has. Or you could look at this bedroom and the people occupying it and think, thank God I don't have that child's life. It's a strange little give and take. I guess that's just a product of being part of the Roys. And speaking of extended members of the Roy family, we get a nice little surprise visit from James Cromwell again, playing Logan's brother, Ewan Roy. And he was nice enough to hook Greg up with an attorney he knows, but in typical Roy fashion, Ewan has an ulterior motive. He cares less about keeping Greg out of trouble than he does putting Logan in deeper trouble. And I don't know if the showrunners did this intentionally or not, but considering that these two brothers are both Scottish billionaires, and the one who is more likable is taller and skinnier and has a cane, I feel like Ewan and Logan are kind of real-world equivalents of Scrooge McDuck and Flintheart Glomgold. And if that's actually what the creators of Succession had in mind, I gotta give them some of this, because that's kind of brilliant. So that would make Greg Donald and most of the siblings Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and that just makes the show 10 times better. Maybe Tom is Launchpad. Now, almost every episode of Succession is full of venom, but this one is a lake of venom, and you can't stay afloat. It is over your head. You are breathing in venomous air. And what I loved so much about this episode that was chock full of moments to love was the very end, was the moment where we see the true colors of Kendall, and we see that Kendall is not supposed to be the show's protagonist. We are not supposed to be rooting for him. He's not our hero. He's not the David who's going to slay Goliath and fix Waystar Royco for the good of the planet, even though that's all he seems to be talking about. Because for all of his posturing, and he spends 90% of this episode posturing and getting on his soapbox and just being sanctimonious about what he has in store for Waystar, for all of that, the second his siblings give him a negative answer, he turns on a dime and he shows his fangs, he shows his true Roy colors. And he tells each and every one of them some of the most despicable things you could say to any other human being, let alone your own siblings. He says Connor is irrelevant, he says Roman is a moron, and he says Siobhan only matters because she's a woman with breasts. It's awful stuff, it's hurtful stuff, and the only reason that the hurtfulness of it can kind of get underplayed is because everything they're saying to one another is awful, hurtful stuff. We have just waded through a whole episode of biting, sarcastic insults and half-baked apologies and gaslighting and just the worst kind of toxic behavior you could possibly imagine wrapped up in these four people who are really talking in circles at the end of the day. And when this all goes down and the siblings have their falling out and Kendall snaps at them all, we see the horrible truth. We see where Succession, the show, is going. And it's going in a very scary but very cool direction. Kendall is not taking down Logan Roy. Kendall is becoming the new one. He's replacing Logan Roy in the most literal sense. Of course, that doesn't excuse any of Logan's sins. In this episode, he has the gall to call back his ex-wife, or I don't know if they're still married, Marcia, to call her back into the fold. She comes all the way to his hotel in Sarajevo to put on a facade of familialness and of peace and family love so that he doesn't look like a monster to the press when he lands back in NYC. He doesn't care about Marcia. He cares about what the paparazzi sees when he steps off a plane. And Marcia, in turn, doesn't care about Logan. She cares about blackmailing his people and essentially saying, you want me to hold his hand and make it look like everything's okay even though it's not okay? Well, fine, but it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you a bunch. The scariest thing about Succession is that the world is full of people like this. Mass in Time of War, more than any other episode of Succession, I think, really showed just the ugly side of every single one of our central characters. Yes, they all have redeeming qualities, but this pushes them to the back burner and reminds you that the bad far outweighs the good when it comes to Clan Roy. So what did you think of that episode? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? More importantly, would you have eaten one of those so-called poison donuts? Because I don't think I could have resisted. Those looked mighty nice. And knowing Logan, they probably came from some artisanal bakery and they cost $7.95 each. It's New York City and it's the Roys. I wouldn't put it past them at this point. That has been Succession, Season 3, Episode 2, Mass in Time of War. This has been Thumbed Together. You have been amazing. I have been Andrew Fantasia, and I'll see you all here next week. Until then, adios.